Welcome to the Mojo Market Report. Here's your hosts, Dave Sturchio and Chris Gueci.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Mojo Market Report here on a Wednesday morning. We hope you guys are doing well out there. We hope you guys have enjoyed this week's worth of content all over the social media platforms on Mojo, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Discord, everything that they're doing over there. I hope you guys are following along and keeping up with Dave Sturchio and Chris Gueci, A5 behind the glass here at Chop Studios. Now, last week, last Wednesday in particular, you know, we're searching here for not things to talk about, but things that would interest us. And when we got access to dive deeper into what would have been if Mojo was around, I think that's a really cool thing to talk about and a cool thing to dive into. But the reason why I bring that up today in specific is because there is an older receiver, a more experienced receiver, has been in the league for a while. He's about to make his return, okay? And we're talking about a DeAndre Hopkins coming off of suspension. Now, again, everybody knows the story. He gets traded from from the Texans over to the Cardinals for a bag of balls. And was that the David Johnson trade? I think it was straight up, right? Or something like that.
It was the David Johnson trade, and they got picks. Yeah, it was a bad trade.
A bad trade, and I believe that was Bill O'Brien still making the calls over there, so nobody actually knew what the heck he was doing. But DeAndre Hopkins acquired by the Cardinals. He obviously gels kind of right away with a Kyler Murray, and then obviously over the offseason, he gets popped for PEDs, 6-game suspension, no appeal. He's just like, all right, look, I'm just, okay. I'm guilty. All right, fine. Done. So he's about to be done. It's believe it or not, we're entering week 6. So this is the final game that DeAndre Hopkins is missing this year. And the Cardinals right now,
they need him.
Oh, it's very apparent that the Cardinals absolutely need a DeAndre Hopkins in their lives. But when it comes to the Mojo market, Chris, I ask you, are you right away in on a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, considering, look, obviously he hasn't played a game yet, right? But his statistics and his career numbers, so they speak for themselves. Like, he's one of the top receivers in football, and he's almost forgotten because, like, when you do all the fantasy drafts and the mock drafts and all that stuff that comes up in the offseason, and you're like, well, he's going to miss 6 games, so that's the reason why he falls. But in reality, when this guy's on the field, he's one of the best going. Are you in on him early?
I'm in on him early.
In 2022.
I don't know how long I'm going to be in on him for. Obviously, the talent is there, and he's in a situation where he's going to inherit most of the targets because he's by far their best, most talented player, I would say, on both sides of the ball. But the reason why I want to talk about Hopkins here more so than anything is because of the strategy that I like people to employ when identifying players that are solid, good veteran players or even star players at that, guys that have high expectations that are either A, dealing with an injury, or B, in this case, dealing with a suspension. And when you're at the tail end of said suspension or said injury recovery, all it takes is that good news.
Yeah.
Once they say, hey, DeAndre Hopkins, one more week. I was scrolling Instagram or Twitter the other day, and I came across a meme, and it was I think it was Walter White.
Okay, love
he
it.
Said, one more week. And it was DeAndre Hopkins to his fantasy owners. Well, guess what? He was talking to Mojo Market players as well, because that got me thinking. And I was like, you know what? I look back, and every single time there was a player that was announced ready to play, they saw an uptick. So whether or not you buy into DeAndre Hopkins for the rest of his career, you should buy into DeAndre Hopkins for at least the next 2 weeks, because I would imagine as soon as this weekend passes and the Sunday games are behind us,
he's officially allowed back into the facility.
In the way of DeAndre Hopkins joining the team, and you're going to see a good news report come out. Adam Schefter's going to tweet, DeAndre Hopkins joins the Cardinals today.
Sources have said
for practice. and then that following Sunday, he's going to suit up and play. Whether he does good or bad is kind of irrelevant in the regard of you get the news, you could sell as soon as the news drops. You could trade
That's
the
true.
price,
I mean, look,
and then you could make a small return. If you want to keep hold of it, I would say, maybe it's going to go up. So if you use a multiplier, then you could kind of cash out and then reinvest if you want to buy into his career. But I could almost guarantee you a small spike in a DeAndre Hopkins once he gets announced ready to return.
So do you have any trepidation whatsoever when it comes to the acclimation of 2022? Like, you say buy it now and then, watch for the good news spike, right? And then kind of sell before the game even starts. But is there any trepidation to somebody that actually does want to go long on a DeAndre Hopkins right now, knowing that it might take a couple weeks? Like, are you Could you be patient with a DeAndre Hopkins?
I would be a little more worried if DeAndre Hopkins was coming off of a serious injury.
Okay.
In this case, he's not. So
Right.
he's actually a fresh body getting to enter week 6 or week 7 of the NFL season where there's a couple guys that are dealing with some wear and tear. He's not. I don't know how much the PEDs were affecting his play in a positive way or not. So there is that element to consider. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
DeAndre Hopkins, he got busted for PEDs.
Yeah,
What's
but
he going to do?
You know what it is
post-PEDs?
with PEDs and stuff. It's just more like banned substance. So
Of
it could have
course.
been anything.
I mean,
you know what I mean?
look, DeAndre Hopkins did not appeal, so we didn't get to see the entire report come to light. So maybe there was a reason why he didn't, because if he had, then the public would have known what he was actually doing. So I'm not so sure how that works, to be honest. But I know that I'm in on Hopkins at least for the next couple weeks because I'm going to inherit that little spike in value as soon as they announce that he's coming back.
I'm in on that too. But it got us thinking, right? DeAndre Hopkins coming on board, coming back. So what about his 2013 draft class, right? He comes in there, and it's a very interesting comparison as we go retro booming today because we want to compare the 2013 draft class, and then we're said, okay, 2013, DeAndre Hopkins comes onto the scene. There's a couple guys that, you know, come in with him. Who could we compare that to in regards to that? So when you look at this 2020 draft class, it's easily compared. So if you look at 2013 with DeAndre Hopkins, he comes in into the league as a very late pick. He came in as the 27th overall pick, obviously to the Houston Texans. If you want to make some comparisons to guys that are relevant in his class that are still somewhat active today, I mean, I say somewhat. I only say somewhat because I know that Cordarrelle Patterson's hurt right now, but when he gets back,
and
he'll
because
be ready
he's
to
also
rock.
now he identifies as a running back.
Yeah. So that's another one. I'm like, well, you know, he's a running back now. Cordarrelle Patterson was also drafted 29th overall. But then, like, you find that gem. Who's that gem of the 2013 draft? If you search into the third round, you got a guy named Keenan Allen. You might have heard of him. What's very similar as we dive into those guys, there's a first round bust. We didn't omit anybody. We're actually, you know, as far as the comparison between the two or the three here, that's easy because we can compare their careers because of longevity and they're still there. A1 Tavon Austin was also selected 8th overall in that year. We don't got to talk about Tavon. Great kick returner. Okay, great kick
He
returner.
carved out a nice decade in the NFL. I'm not really.
Yeah, I mean, look,
my
he made
heart
his
does
money.
not bleed for Tavon Austin. He had a
No, it
solid little
doesn't.
career.
But the funny part is about the 2013 draft. Now, if you look at their share price right now, and if you pull that up, 2013. So look, DeAndre Hopkins right now sitting there at 23.96, and he hasn't played it down yet this year. So that's relevant to the rest of the guys. Who's around DeAndre Hopkins right now? You wrote down.
Yeah, Hopkins is sandwiched in between Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill.
All right, so Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams both having very, very productive years right now. DeAndre Hopkins hasn't done anything, and he's still sitting there. So you got to assume that the expectations and the future projections for this guy for this year are relatively good.
So they only have him projected for the rest of his career at 560. I actually don't have in front of me his average bank value per season, but essentially what you're betting against when you're investing in a player is his future market expectations. And I think that DeAndre Hopkins steps into a situation where that's feasible. A really good second half this year, and that will shoot up for sure.
Yeah.
I can't not say that I'm in on Hopkins because Hopkins has done nothing but produce every season that he's been in the league so far. So I'm personally not in on Hopkins long term because of preference. That's literally what it comes down to. But if you're a DeAndre Hopkins guy, I can't imagine you're not in on DeAndre Hopkins.
Again, his career numbers speak for themselves. He's got, over almost 1,300 targets. They like throwing him the football in his career, okay? That's a given. But when you talk about DeAndre Hopkins, much like we've talked about every other receiver that we've ever talked about in the first 4 weeks of the show, is that it all really depends on who's throwing him the rock. And Kyler Murray, the what is it called? The jury? The jury's not out?
Yeah, but the jury's not out. The jury's not out on Kyler as far
Not
as
yet.
how he's going to be a long-term NFL quarterback. But the jury is definitely out on the fact that Hopkins has at least some solidarity at the quarterback position. They just gave Kyler Murray that deal. That's going to extend at least through DeAndre Hopkins' career. At the end of the day, Kyler Murray was the first overall pick. He's a super talented quarterback.
He is.
And he's what is he, in year 3?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think so.
Year 3 or 4. It's not over yet.
It doesn't matter.
Kyler Murray.
All I know is he got paid before his option.
Just
so,
remember
yeah.
last year at this time, 1 year ago today, they were undefeated, and Kyler Murray was at the top of the MVP race. Now, I understand that that's week 6, and it's taken a sour turn since then. dating back to last year, second half, all the way into this year. But no, I think Kyler Murray could flick it still, and that offense at least is built to put up passing stats. I think the defense is a real issue there, and that's actually going to play well for the pass catchers and the passing offense. So I'm convincing myself here to be in on DeAndre Hopkins.
I'm with it. Somebody else, obviously, from that draft class of note, we already talked about Patterson. Patterson's future projections right now is only sitting at $1.71. So a lot of people are, and look, that's running backs as well. So then now you have to factor that in. But a lot of people are saying like, oh, nice little season, nice little career. Good job for finding your way 9 years later. But, we don't. Based off of his price right now, I would say if you think Cordarrelle Patterson is going to exceed these expectations, now's the time to get in it, right? I mean, or exceed the projections.
Yeah, I think this is a very, very risky play. Running backs in general are a little bit risky.
Yeah,
so when we're talking about
that.
A receiver that's now converted to a running back, I understand he hasn't had the wear and tear that a typical running back at the age of 31 would have.
Right.
But they're in a run-happy offense, and that plays well for him when he does get back. But at the same time, getting the ball 20, 25 times a game, you see what happens to Cordarrelle Patterson.
Well, yeah, also, put a little respect on the 7 targets that he has in 4 weeks. So
you would think
they treat him like a receiver, too.
I got to admit.
You would think they'd throw him out of the backfield more.
There would be a ton more
100%.
receptions.
I was actually kind of taken back by that number. I was like, well, wait a minute.
I feel the same way about Antonio Gibson. He played receiver in college. Like J.D. McKissick is the pass-catching back.
Well, that's probably why they also
make it make sense. How, Sway?
So I'm trying to think. They had him listed as a kick returner too, as the safe option not to drop a ball. So that goes to that. At least shows you that he has the hands, right? The confidence was there. Anyway, we'll get into all that when when that offense starts clicking, because according to Ron Rivera, they don't have a quarterback. So that's another story for another day. I could have told you that a long time ago. But in any event, one more guy, Keenan Allen, somebody to just pay attention to, because he's up 343% over his career. So my estimation is that Keenan Allen, now only playing one game this year so far, 4 catches, 4 targets, which is great, 100%. Awesome. He's in an offense where he will be used until he's not there anymore. And when I say that, the Chargers are in a situation right now where they're paying 2 of their receivers $20 million apiece. That obviously is not sustainable in this new NFL salary cap, up against the cap hell, all that stuff you hear about. Does the cap exist? That remains to be seen. There's people out there that think, no, there's no way. Just ask the Rams. But a guy like Keenan Allen, is that somebody that is, dare I say, I'm not going to say the word safe, but when he does come back and he is healthy, because of the fact that they have Mike Williams, do you expect a good projection for Keenan Allen going forward, even if he finds himself on a different squad down the line? Because he's obviously not going to retire anytime soon. So how do you feel about Keenan Allen right now?
I don't feel too good about Keenan
Doesn't feel
Allen.
good.
I like the Chargers offense, but I like the young guys in the offense. I like Herbert. I like Mike Williams. I like Gerald Everett. Keenan Allen, when I'm looking at guys at the position, I'm looking at guys that have not hit their prime yet. Keenan Allen is certainly past his prime. There is a chance that he outplays his market projections, but I think that there's a stronger chance that at his age that the wheels come off on him a little bit. They're starting to. And look, I'm a big Keenan Allen guy. I do believe that he's been one of the most underrated receivers over the last decade in the NFL, but that's always been the case, and that's carrying with him now. So even though I think he was underrated, it may be putting a little bit of a tarnish on what I think of him now, because I've always kind of felt that way.
Right.
So it could be bleeding in here. But I just think that the loaded talent at the position, the amount of talent that's come into the league over the last 2 seasons, which it's astounding. We did a deep dive into the receiver classes, obviously, to identify which one we were going to talk about today. And it's just it's astounding to me how many guys were productive right away. As we get into the further segment of Retro Boomin, I'm going to talk about a guy that was like the first receiver that was drafted that did really well in his rookie season. We'll talk about him a little bit later, but it's just not it's very rare. And because of that, it's like, how could you look at Keenan Allen as a buy? He already accumulated most of what he's going to do in his career. The banked value, if he retired today, that's all he's going to get. So the future, you're banking on the future with Keenan Allen. I think there's a lot of guys with a much brighter future in this league.
And you say that as we kind of segue into the 2020 draft class. Now, we said it yesterday while sitting in the office. We're talking, kind of brainstorming this show, and we're like, man, are we spoiled right now with the last couple years of these receivers, some of the most like physically gifted,
And
talented
guess
dudes
what?
in the world.
Nothing is changing next year.
Nothing.
There's some.
When you look at 2020, obviously I have some bias to it because, the Cowboys got themselves their future wide receiver one. CeeDee Lamb is taken 17th overall, right? He's up 109% in just 3 years' time. And then you did ask me, you treaded lightly. You know that I feel some sort of way about it, but you're like, are you upset that you didn't draft Justin Jefferson?
Said, like, my whole question is there's a lot of Jalen Reagor memes going around.
Yeah.
Now they're teammates and it's a cool story. Great. But when are the Dallas Cowboys memes going to start popping up that they really took CeeDee over Justin Jefferson?
Yeah, but
stop it.
No.
Stop it.
Yeah. But no, the way I see CeeDee Lamb is much better than Jalen Reagor.
100%.
Yeah, so like we're not sitting there with buyer's remorse.
At the end of the day, you're talking about.
But here's the thing.
I think CeeDee's a solid receiver. I'm definitely. I might even be in on CeeDee, I'm all the way in on.
Right.
Jay
So in
Jetta.
2022 alone, as we all know that Justin Jefferson is just all world. I just as a comparison, CeeDee Lamb's been fed 50 targets and he's got 28 catches, 2 touchdowns. I'm like, oh. All right, cool. The Vikings have thrown the ball to Justin Jefferson 55 times, which is just 5 more than CeeDee Lamb. He's got 40 grabs already, and 2 touchdowns, and just a whole boatload of yards.
There was 2 weeks where Justin Jefferson was not involved in the offense, even a shred.
And now also, let's call it how it is. Cooper Rush is throwing the ball to CeeDee Lamb for the last 4 weeks of football, and that offense has looked completely different.
I believe Cooper Rush is 1-0 against Kirk Cousins.
He is. That was last year. Halloween-ish time. Maybe it was November. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
I understand that. I understand
we won
that,
but
in
their house.
I think that the main issue with CeeDee is the drops. But that doesn't really stop the talent. The talent is there. The drops, you'd hope he fixes that. But some of that could just be an anomaly.
Right. And I have to say this. Just like we mentioned Tavon Austin as a first-round early pick bust. Just so happens that 2020 has the same thing. I mean, it's a way different scenario, way different situation because the bust of 2020 was obviously Henry Ruggs for outside of football reasons. But he was drafted early, and he'll never play football again in his life. So it's like one of those things where if Mojo was around and you got really excited, you're like, man, Ruggs is going to light the world on fire. And then he does what he does without any bank value, Chris. You lose all that money.
Yeah. That's
all
actually
gone.
a good indicator. We'll talk about Henry Ruggs. He's going to resurface in this episode.
Ah, yes. Okay. More Henry Ruggs. But Ant, pull up the 2020 graphic because I want to show the comparison between the two of them. Or the 3 of them, sorry. CeeDee Lamb sitting there at 1902. Justin Jefferson, as we talked about last week, top dog right now. So he kind of just boomed right to the top. But then you have here's a guy, I feel like Collinsworth again, that we've been talking about for 3 weeks now. And we want you to diversify your portfolio with Devin Duvernay. Devin Duvernay was taken 92nd overall in the 2020 draft. And I quizzed you. I said, bro, guess what? We found one. There's a gem at the back end of this draft. And, you guessed a couple of them. I'm like, no, it's not him. It's your guy. And you're like, your guy.
I just don't think
Devontae.
of him. I don't think of Duvernay as a wide receiver. I think of him as a football
player.
Well,
you better.
He's
an
all-around football player. This guy does it all. I'm all in on Duvernay. I've talked about him every chance that I've gotten. And he just passes the eye test for me. I'm not even concerned about the numbers because
there's good numbers.
I know, but I'm not even concerned about the numbers. I'm not. I just know what I'm seeing when I'm watching Duvernay. He reminds me of a young Randall Cobb. It may be take a little bit longer to get going because of the usage, the way they used him in his first 2 seasons. But if you look at his first 2 seasons, he's gotten significantly better in each of them. And this year, you already know what he's doing. He was leading the league in touchdowns through 3 weeks. So
listen, he's got 20 targets, so they're looking for him in some regards. 17 catches, 226 yards, and 3 touchdowns in 5 weeks.
And he's got some rushing attempts.
And he took one to the house.
And he has a kick return for a touchdown.
That's what I'm saying. He house called a kick return.
He's returning punts, returning kicks, getting handoffs.
My question to you is, riddle me this, right? Keenan Allen comes into the league. When he got in here, I have it written down.
No,
he came in here.
I do not think Devin Duvernay is going to turn into Keenan Allen.
No,
I could
not even close.
I could see Randall Cobb.
What was Duvernay's price again? Bring that up again, because I was just curious.
I could see Cole Beasley. I could see Randall Cobb. I could see guys that are just slot receivers that are good. They managed a long, nice career in the league. I was going to say Brandon Lloyd. All these names started popping up yesterday.
Yeah, no, I know these names. They were like, oh, I remember him for the practice squad.
Duvernay, Randall Cobb. Jace, maybe not as good because he doesn't have Aaron Rodgers.
But what I'm saying is, right now you got Keenan Allen, right? I don't know. I just feel like Duvernay has a shot to be, especially in that offense, when they don't have the number one really designated besides, like Bateman's been touted to be the number one, but he hasn't delivered yet.
Devin Duvernay doesn't have the attributes that a Keenan Allen has.
Oh, I can't wait to go back. 5 years into our Mojo show, I can't wait to come back and say,
I hope
look
so.
at Duvernay go.
If Devin Duvernay, look, bro, I'll be rich if Devin Duvernay turns into Keenan Allen. Let's just say that because, I'm all about my boy.
I have an office right next to some of the higher ups at Mojo.
Yeah, man.
Just
be like,
hey, I'm the guy who invested in Duvernay in 2022. Remember
I
me?
hope you guys join the party with me because we got Keenan Allen in the making, according to Dave. No, it's more like Randall Cobb. But hey, if you see what Randall Cobb is about right now, if Devin Duvernay turns into
about that
Randall
third
Cobb,
down, yeah,
we're all good, boys.
Right.
We're all good.
I'm with it. I'm with it. All right, so this is the interesting part of this, okay? Because obviously we compared the two classes. We got 2020, 2013. The interesting part about this is what you mentioned before. After 2013, and we did our research there in 2020, and like I said, we're spoiled right now. We're getting receivers after receivers, deeper classes every single year. If you go back to where, as far back as we can go on that, in-depth, spreadsheet, I guess you could call it. It is a spreadsheet. I guess you can call it it's definitely a spreadsheet. But if you go back and you look at the draft classes of wide receivers, it was tough sledding to find any relevant receivers from like the year 2000 to like 2014.
It wasn't that it was tough to find one in a class. Like there was
but
Larry
like,
Fitzgerald,
where's
but
the
then
class?
there was nobody else.
Yeah, where's the
We
class?
are very spoiled. We just
listen. We went and dove.
Got comfortable accepting all these 31 starting receivers a year.
In 2003.
That's another reason why I'm not in on Keenan Allen. There's just too much talent being influxed into the league.
So these old heads get pushed out.
Yeah, it's tough, man.
I always look at Keenan Allen like him and Mike Evans are like Spider-Man meme. I feel like this is very comparable.
Two highly underrated receivers that are just highly productive every year.
Yeah.
Keenan Allen is like the old Amari Cooper.
So if you
go
go
doesn't
back,
get any respect, but is a great route runner and is very productive every year.
Right. If you go back to a young senior year of high school for one Dave Sturchio in 2003, okay, that's the last time we saw a class. And when I say class, I mean two guys that really stick out and stand out. And we're talking about Andre Johnson and, of course, Anquan Bolden. Now, these guys, they carved out themselves a career. And they're the last ones of the last of the Mohicans when it comes to having a comparable class. Like, you look at these guys, and receivers, their life expectancy in the NFL is a little longer based off your role. Like, you see guys that are been playing in the league for 10, 11 years because of an underneath role, like a Danny Amendola or somebody like that.
The
but
numbers are skewed on that. We've talked about it.
That's very true.
There's so many receivers getting a shot in the league that it brings the number down because when you kick the tires on 13 guys in camp and half of them only last 2 months, it brings the numbers down significantly. But I do agree that this is one of the I like this class because it brings a rookie receiver into this class that did well right out of the gate. Anquan Bolden lit it on fire out of Florida State when he joined the Cardinals. And that team, man, that was one of the most fun teams to watch play. I wish I could say I'm all in on Anquan Bolden because he's like Debo, but like 20 years ago, very similar player. But Andre Johnson was one of the best players of all time. And the reason why, best receivers, in my opinion, of all time. Yeah, I was pump the brakes.
Here come the comments.
But the reason why I was interested in bringing these guys into the fold is because when we talk about, you could bring up that next graphic, Ant. When we talk about retired players, we don't really have an understanding as to what their entry. When a player retires in the Mojo market, obviously their future projections are gone. Right?
Goodbye.
Their market projections are gone. And by the time they're retired, all of their entry point value, that's also gone because they've now established a new baseline for the talent and the expectation. Mm-hmm. So I want to bring this up because I just want to explain a little bit about how the market projections and the actually share prices work. So when you want to come up with a guy's share price, it's exactly this. It's banked value plus market projections. So in this case, these guys retired. Andre Johnson may have had another $1.20, we'll say for this case, because it'll be easy to do the math. Mm-hmm. He may have had another $1.20 in future projections, future market projections, but when he retired, his bank value was $25.80, so it goes down to $25.80. Conversely, a guy like Jamison Williams, which I can't wait to talk about right now, when Jamison Williams joins the party in Detroit, he's going to have only future market projections and $0 bank value. If he retired today, you invest in him at, we'll say, $11. If you invest in him today and he decides tomorrow that he wants to retire or he does a Henry Ruggs and he doesn't play in the league, then you lose your entire investment because he has nothing banked. So essentially, when you play the market, you're betting against the market projections, and the risk that you're playing with is the market value, the bank value. So if you have bank value already, that's the most risk. The risk stops there. It can't go below that. So that gives you a better understanding, and I think it clarifies something that we were talking about last week with the quarterbacks and their entry-level value. That goes away in the Mojo market as you set a new bar.
And
Questions?
well, raise your hand. Listen, Chris. No,
me.
so what you're saying is, as soon as they take the field, you no longer lose that investment.
Well, you do because for example, so say Jameson Williams has one game, but he doesn't have a catch.
Okay.
Right? He took the field.
He's going to drop a little bit.
He didn't accumulate anything. He can drop a little bit because his market projections would probably then drop. But let's just say he didn't have a catch in one game, and then the next game he retired. It would still be zero. It would still lose all of it. But let's say he had 10 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown. Whatever that's worth in the Mojo market in terms of bank value, and then he retired, you would have that.
At the very least.
At the very least.
Okay.
So there becomes a floor.
So the risk is,
as you accumulate stats, you create a floor, and that becomes your safety net. So you're not really risking any more than that.
So basically, the bottom can't drop out on a player.
A player can't drop below his bank value.
Okay. Makes sense.
Can't drop below his bank value, and when you want to make money, you're banking on the fact that he's going to exceed his market projections. If you were to hold him until his retirement, which I think is another conversation to be had, which is I don't believe you should ever do that. I believe wholeheartedly in selling a player at the highest peak of his career. So if I get Justin Herbert and he turns 27 and he wins his second Super Bowl, I'm selling right then because there's a chance that it only goes downhill from there in terms of his
downhill, but maybe the percentages aren't really that heavy, is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Like you say downhill, they might say 1%. You know what I mean? That also depends on how much you've invested too. So, but what I'm asking you,
well, for example, though, you see a lot of quarterbacks like a Russ that's been in the $100 club. He was good. He's been playing in Super Bowls, and now look what happened to Russ. The wheels came off in the twilight of his career. You could call it the twilight. I don't know if he even made it to the twilight.
He's cooked.
It came out. The wheels came off a little sooner. So if you were thinking, okay, I got Russ, it's going to be peaches and cream the rest of the way. He's going to keep on going up like a Tom Brady or an Aaron Rodgers. That's not always the case. So I believe that you get the guy at his peak when his market projections are as high as possible, and he has a really good bank value. That's the time that I'm looking to sell these players when I'm playing long term.
So if you have, all right, so hear me out. Just arbitrarily conversation about a guy like Tom Brady.
This is the good stuff.
Yeah.
I like this.
So for a guy like Tom Brady, last year, if Mojo was around and he announced his retirement and he went on this social media thing and blah, 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 at that point, I gotta look back because it's just one of those curious questions. Like, at that point, did he dip because everybody thought he was gone? But then all of a sudden, 3 weeks later, he's like, I don't want to be anywhere near my family.
Yes,
I'm coming back.
Yes. So I don't have the model to look at.
Right, I know. I'm just curious to know how that works.
To my understanding, the way it would work would be, let's just say right now, it's actually a good indicator. So Tom Brady right now, I believe his future market projections are like $1.80.
Okay,
right?
so clearly he's not winning another Super Bowl. Thank God.
Well, they just
if he does, if you think he's going to win another Super Bowl, that's multipliers and
it lends more to the fact that the league thinks the market projects that Tom Brady is not going to play past this season. Because if they thought that he was going to play next year, then they would add probably $3 or $4 to his projected projection market projections, because if you look at his career bank value specifically in his 40s, which is he's had better 40s than he did 30s or 20s. Explain that to me. League rules.
Kale.
HGH.
Juice. The good juice. Kale juice.
I was talking about the human growth hormone kind, but no accusations here. I'm just joking. That's tongue in cheek. But to be honest about it, when Tom Brady probably had the future market projections the same that he did last year as this year. So if you bought Tom Brady last year, even though he's at the tail end of his career, he probably had like $1.80 bank value. As soon as he announced that he was coming back, that shot up another $4 of market projections. So Tom Brady then was a good buy at that point. So yes, if you think Tom Brady's coming back next year, which I don't see how anyone would think that, you should be buying Tom Brady. But to look at another quarterback in a similar position, they treat Aaron Rodgers almost a year-to-year basis too. They almost do it like a year and a half, 2-year basis with Aaron Rodgers, because there's like maybe 1, maybe 2. But Aaron Rodgers is contracted through 4 more. So if Aaron Rodgers...
He is not...
All right,
playing
you
that
say
one
that,
out.
but I got 200 million reasons why he might.
Yeah, and then he's a co-host on the McAfee show, and he's
That's
fine.
all good. That's all good, but 50 million a year is
oh yeah, well, listen, that's a hefty little dollar amount.
It's hard to put it away. It's hard.
I get
Aaron
it.
Rodgers, I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. If you think Aaron Rodgers is going to play 2, 3, 4 more years, I don't know how you're not buying.
I don't know. But, the funny part about this conversation right now is somehow we went retro booming on receivers, and somehow at the end of all this, we're talking about Tom Brady. Make it make sense. I want to get out of this Tom Brady conversation.
Tom Brady is a good indicator.
Yes, I understand.
He's like a very good benchmark in trying to explain how the market works. And guys that haven't played a game yet are also very good benchmarks. And then retired players that we could show, like, literally, I should have made a graph, and I will. I promise.
Oh, it's coming.
But I didn't intend on having this layered conversation about the market.
These are the conversations you need to have. If you're a new user over at the Mojo Market, you need to know this stuff. And again, it's different than your typical market. It's not fantasy football. It's where it all meets together, and you got to learn this stuff over time.
Very simple. Bank value plus market projections equals shared price. If you're
which, by the way, I was blown away by yesterday.
You're playing against the market projections. That's what it is.
All right, that's what it is.
The safety net is the bank value.
Retro booming, case number 2 in the books. We hope you guys have enjoyed this show, and we hope you guys are smart about your investments in a DeAndre Hopkins. What we also want you to do is we want you to subscribe. We want you to subscribe to everything that we have to offer over here, and we have the app, which obviously you have my trusty, dusty little phone there. How you like that? You also have to follow us on all of social media platforms at Mojo, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. Join the Discord. Join the conversation so experts like Chris can tell you about this stuff throughout the course of the day. If you have any questions, he's there to answer them. You can also head on over to mojo.com for all the blogs and everything. The in-depth writing that those guys have over there and produce is incredible. So thank you guys for joining us here on a Wednesday. Tomorrow, again, I'll say this every week until the season's over. I can't believe it's week 6 already. I'm just going to keep saying that on Wednesday shows. I can't believe it's week 7.
Bro,
before you know it, I'm going to be like freezing my head off.
Football season has put me in a blender.
Yeah,
right?
This is the busiest football season
love it.
I've ever been in.
This is what we do.
I can't even appreciate a 4-1 Cowboys team right now, and I should be.
I could sure as hell not appreciate that 3-2 Packers team after Sunday.
So for Dave Sturchio, Chris Gueci, A5 Behind the Glass, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Week 6 is here.